Usually when we talk about some kind of major health shift, there's this expectation of a singular defining moment, like a flashing engine light on your dashboard.
Oh, yeah, like an event.
Right. You get a sudden fever or maybe a sharp pain, and the doctor points to the chart and says, there is the problem.
Exactly. It's visible. It completely demands your immediate attention.
But then, you look into the biology of aging, specifically when we're talking about our physical strength, and that warning light just doesn't exist. We're looking at a physical transition today that is completely silent.
It really is the ultimate stealth decline. It happens so quietly that by the time you actually notice it, it has already completely reshaped how you live your day-to-day life.
And if you are listening to this right now, the mission of today's deep dive is to prove to you that losing your physical strength is not some inevitable life sentence of getting older.
Definitely not.
It is a highly reversible process. And by the time we finish today, you're going to have a lifelong blueprint to protect your physical independence. So, okay, let's unpack this, because usually the topic of aging and fitness can feel incredibly intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. Or even a little depressing for some people.
Right. But the mechanics behind this are actually so accessible and honestly empowering.
Well, we need to establish the stakes right out of the gate here. Preserving your muscle mass as you get older isn't about trying to look 20 years younger.
Yeah.
And it's not about becoming a bodybuilder either. It
No.
is strictly about maintaining the freedom to live your life exactly how you want to.
Which is what everyone wants, right?
Exactly. It's about being able to travel without anxiety or, play with your grandchildren garden or just move through your own home with confidence.
Yeah.
Strong muscles provide the literal physical foundation that makes all of those experiences possible.
So, before we can build a strategy to protect our muscles, we first need to understand the invisible enemy we're up against.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Yeah, and the medical term for this is sarcopenia, which is just the gradual decline in muscle mass, strength, and function. And the timeline here is wild.
It really is.
This quiet decline actually begins around age 30, but the rate of loss accelerates significantly after age 50.
And understanding the biological why behind that acceleration changes how you look at your own body. Because as we age, we produce lower levels of the specific hormones that act as the foreman of muscle building.
Okay, so which hormones are we talking about?
We're talking about growth hormone, testosterone, and estrogen. When those levels drop, the actual muscle tissues become less responsive to the chemical signals that stimulate growth and repair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the body's internal messaging system essentially gets muffled.
It's basically a communication breakdown. And, when you combine that muffled internal signal with a tendency to adopt a more sedentary lifestyle as we get older, it creates a perfect storm.
A total perfect storm, yeah.
Because the muscles are receiving fewer and fewer signals telling them to stay strong. And muscle is biologically expensive tissue to maintain.
Right. Very expensive. It takes a lot of calories and energy just to keep it around.
Right. So the body says, well, if you aren't using this expensive tissue, I'm not going to spend the energy to maintain it.
Exactly. It's a ruthlessly efficient energy-saving mechanism.
And because this happens slowly over decades, you don't just wake up one morning suddenly weak. I like to think of age-related muscle loss as a slowly leaking tire.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. You don't notice the air escaping on a day-to-day basis. You drive to work, go to the store, and everything feels totally fine.
Right.
But one day, you try to put a real load on it, like packing the car with heavy luggage for a long road trip, and you realize you're riding on the rim.
What's fascinating here is that the body actually tries to warn you before you end up on the rim. There are early whispers, warning signs that this muscle loss is beginning to affect your function.
Whispers like what?
Well, these aren't reasons to panic, first of all. They are gentle messages from your body asking for a little more care.
But the scary thing is how subtle these whispers are, right? Like you might just think you're tired, but suddenly you realize you're relying heavily on the handrail to physically pull yourself up a flight of stairs.
Yes, exactly.
Or maybe you feel unusually unsteady when you step off a curb or try to turn around quickly in the kitchen.
Balance is a massive indicator. Like, if you are struggling to stand on one leg to put on your shoes,
Oh yeah, and that's a common one.
that's a direct physiological sign that the intricate stabilizing muscles in your core and legs are weakening. They just don't have the endurance to hold your center of gravity anymore.
You might also notice a naturally slower walking pace compared to your peers. Or, you're experiencing prolonged muscle soreness after totally routine activities.
Even developing a stooped, rounded posture is a whisper.
Because of the back muscles.
Right. Your core and back muscles are simply losing the endurance required to hold your spine upright against gravity all day.
But noticing these whispers gives you the exact opportunity you need to intervene, because the human body remains highly adaptable in our 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
Highly adaptable. If you change the input signal, the body will change its physical response.
So if inactivity and muffled signals are the primary drivers of this slowly leaking tire, the antidote has to be movement.
Exactly.
But the great news is that the antidote isn't an expensive gym membership or some miserable, sweaty boot camp. It's entirely about re-engineering how we move through our daily environment.
It all comes back to that fundamental biological principle of use it or lose it. If your muscles aren't challenged, the body breaks them down. But the moment you introduce resistance, you flip that switch back to build.
And resistance does not need to be a heavy barbell, right?
Not at all. The sheer value of incidental movement is immense.
Like we're talking about gardening, vacuuming, washing the car. These all require muscles to engage in unexpected ways.
Hiking is actually an exceptional form of incidental movement too, and the mechanism there is brilliant.
Because of the uneven ground.
Yes. When you walk on uneven terrain like rocks, roots, slight inclines, it forces all those tiny stabilizing muscles in your ankles, your knees, and your core to constantly fire and adjust to keep you upright.
Which you just can't get on a perfectly flat treadmill.
Exactly. You are forcing the nervous system to solve physical puzzles in real time. But, when you want to be a bit more intentional about it, functional strength training is the next step.
And that simply means doing exercises that replicate everyday movements so you can perform them better in your actual life. And these require zero equipment.
Zero.
Squats are always at the top of the list because a squat is just the biomechanical process of getting out of a chair and standing back up.
Wall push-ups are great too. They protect the wrists and shoulders while strengthening the chest and upper back.
Oh, and lunges.
Right. Lunges train the exact muscle groups you need to climb stairs effortlessly. And then there's the farmer's carry, which is literally just holding heavy objects by your sides and walking.
And the dose required to see life-changing benefits is surprisingly low. I mean, just 2 to 3 sessions a week for 20 to 40 minutes per session.
Yep, you can use your own body weight, light resistance bands, or a kettlebell.
Wait, okay, based on that functional training definition, are you telling me that the classic one-trip grocery challenge, where I stubbornly try to carry all 12 heavy shopping bags from the trunk to the kitchen at the exact same time so I don't have to make a second trip, is actually a legitimate workout?
Yes. It absolutely is.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. Are everyday chores secretly functional fitness?
That stubbornly heavy trip from the car to the kitchen is perfectly aligned with the mechanics of a farmer's carry.
Wow.
I mean, you're gripping a heavy load, keeping it close to your center of mass, engaging your core to stay upright, and walking. It challenges your forearms, shoulders, upper back, hips, and legs simultaneously.
So it's basically a full-body workout.
Right. And the reason your grocery challenge works is because of the physiological signal it sends. You are actively proving to your nervous system that your muscle tissue is still needed, valued, and worth spending the energy to maintain.
That is so cool. But sending that signal is empowering, though it's really only half the battle. Because if you're a construction manager and you send a signal to your crew to build a house, they can't do anything if you don't give them bricks and lumber.
Yep, they'd just be standing there.
Exactly. Without the physical raw materials to rebuild the muscle, the exercise signal is basically useless. So we have to look at how we nourish the body to answer the call of exercise.
And the most critical raw material for this process is protein. Protein supplies the amino acids that your body uses to literally patch damaged muscle fibers and synthesize new tissue.
Right.
But there is a very important biological shift that happens. Older adults actually need more protein than younger adults just to maintain their baseline muscle mass.
Wait, really? Why is that?
It's a condition called anabolic resistance. As we age, our digestive and metabolic systems become slightly less efficient at extracting and utilizing those amino acids.
Oh, so they just don't absorb it as well.
Right. To get the same muscle-building response as a 20-year-old, you have to supply a bit more protein. And critically, it should be spread evenly throughout the day rather than just consumed in one massive dinner, so the body has a steady stream of building blocks.
Okay, but I have to ask, when we talk about older adults needing more protein, are we talking about those extreme fad diets where people eat massive steaks 3 times a day and avoid all carbohydrates?
This raises an important question, and it is vital we are clear on the science here. Extreme meat-only fad diets can be highly counterproductive.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem sustainable.
It's not. It's about a balanced integration of high-quality proteins alongside colorful plants. We are talking about oily fish like salmon and mackerel.
Which are delicious anyway.
Exactly. And those provide the protein, but they also deliver omega-3 fatty acids that actively reduce joint and muscle inflammation. We're also talking about eggs, tofu, lentils, beans, and Greek yogurt.
And the non-protein materials matter just as much. Let's talk about hydration, because our natural thirst reflexes actually drop as we age.
They do, yeah.
The brain just doesn't signal that we are thirsty as quickly. But water is involved in every cellular process. Even mild dehydration causes muscle cramps, increases fatigue, and dramatically slows down how efficiently your muscle cells can repair after a workout.
And beyond water, micronutrients act as the chemical catalysts for all of this. Vitamin D is crucial. It's not just for bone density, it is essential for normal muscle function and balance.
Which goes back to the falling risk, right?
Exactly. A lack of vitamin D is directly linked to a heavily increased risk of falls. And vitamin D is the key that allows your body to absorb calcium.
And calcium is the mineral actually responsible for muscle contraction, which, by the way, you can easily get from leafy greens and almonds, not just dairy. And then there is magnesium, which honestly feels like the unsung hero of muscle health. While calcium fires the muscle contraction, magnesium is what allows the muscle to actually relax and produce energy.
And you can get plenty of magnesium from pumpkin seeds, spinach, and even dark chocolate.
I love that dark chocolate makes the list.
Right. We also can't forget the colorful foods, though. Berries, cherries, orange vegetables like sweet potatoes, and carrots.
They don't have much protein, though.
No, they don't, but they are packed with antioxidants. Whenever you exercise, you naturally create oxidative stress in the body. Antioxidants are the biological cleanup crew that sweeps up that stress, reduces inflammation, and promotes faster recovery.
So it's about balance.
Exactly. Small, sustainable dietary shifts, like just adding a handful of berries or a piece of salmon, are vastly superior to strict, miserable diets.
Okay, so we have the exercise stimulus sending the signal. We have the protein and micronutrients providing the materials. But when does the actual construction happen?
Ah, the best part.
Right, because the surprising truth here is that your muscles do not grow while you are working out. That burning sensation you feel during a squat isn't muscle growth. Which brings us to the critical, and frankly often ignored, phase of rest and recovery.
Exercise is just the stimulus. When you lift a weight or do a wall push-up, you are intentionally creating highly controlled microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. You are causing damage.
Right.
The rebuilding, the actual strengthening of the tissue, happens hours and days after the workout is completely over.
So think of exercise as the demolition phase. You are knocking down the old walls. Nutrition is the delivery truck, dropping off the lumber and the bricks to the site.
I like this analogy.
But sleep and stress management, that is the actual construction crew doing the building. If you don't sleep, the crew never shows up to the job site. You've just got a demolished lot and a pile of bricks.
That is perfectly said. And if the crew never shows up, the microscopic damage just accumulates, leading to weakness rather than strength. The primary foreman of that construction crew is growth hormone. And growth hormone is released almost exclusively during deep sleep. That is the exact physiological window when tissue repair peaks.
But there is a massive villain in this construction process, isn't there? Cortisol. We know cortisol is the stress hormone, perfectly fine in short bursts if you need to run away from danger. But what happens when we are chronically stressed for weeks or months at a time?
Chronic stress keeps cortisol levels artificially elevated in your bloodstream. And from a muscular standpoint, chronic cortisol is devastating.
How so?
Evolutionarily, cortisol thinks you are in a constant state of danger, so it actively breaks down your hard-earned muscle tissue to convert those amino acids into quick energy, basically sugar, to help you survive the perceived threat.
So it literally cannibalizes you.
It cannibalizes you, yes.
Right.
It increases systemic inflammation, and on a psychological level, it completely destroys your motivation to cook a healthy meal or do your daily walk.
So managing stress isn't just about feeling calm. I mean, it is a strict physiological requirement for preserving your physical strength.
Absolutely.
And active recovery is how you combat this. It's not just collapsing on the couch, right? It's gentle stretching, taking 5 to 10 minutes to do mobility work so your joints smoothly move through their full range of motion.
Yes. Or mindfulness, yoga, or just simple breathing exercises.
Just breathing.
Honestly, taking just 5 slow, deep breaths can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering your heart rate and reducing muscle tension. And time in nature, just walking in the woods drops cortisol levels significantly.
That makes so much sense.
Treating rest as a sign of weakness or laziness is a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology. Balancing effort with adequate recovery is the ultimate secret to lifelong resilience. You have to respect your body's need to rebuild just as much as its need to move.
But, knowing all these components, the functional movement, the protein, the deep sleep, it's all great in theory. But how do we practically weave this into a daily life that we don't end up hating or abandoning after a single month?
That's the real challenge.
Right. That requires looking at the daily habits that cement all of this together into a lifelong blueprint.
Well, the first major habit to tackle is sitting. The danger of prolonged sitting is immense. You could do a fantastic 30-minute functional strength workout in the morning, but if you sit at a desk or in front of a television for the next 10 hours, your joints stiffen, your circulation slows down to a crawl, and those muscles deactivate.
So what's the rule of thumb?
The rule is simple. You need to physically stand up every 30 to 60 minutes.
Just stand up, maybe stretch your arms, walk to the kitchen for a glass of water, and come back. It wakes the nervous system up.
Exactly.
And maintaining a healthy body weight is another crucial habit. Excess fat places a heavy, constant mechanical strain on your joints, particularly your knees and lower back.
But you have to be careful there because extreme, rapid weight loss is dangerous. When you starve the body on a crash diet, it eats away your highly valuable muscle tissue right along with the fat.
Oh man, that completely defeats the purpose.
Right. It's all about healthy body composition, not just a lower number on a scale. As you build these habits, progression is key, but it must be gradual. Like if you used a light resistance band this month, maybe try a slightly thicker one next month.
Because your body adapts.
Exactly. Your body adapts to the physical challenge, so you have to slowly increase the demand to keep that internal build signal active.
So what does this all mean? Honestly, looking at this entire blueprint, it's a massive pushback against the all-or-nothing fitness mentality that society constantly pushes on us.
Oh, completely.
We're told if we aren't sweating in a commercial gym for an hour a day, we're failing. But it is incredibly liberating to realize that biology explicitly proves that perfection is not required. Consistency is what matters.
Yes, consistency over intensity.
A 20-minute daily walk that you actually enjoy and actually do beats an exhausting, dreaded weekly boot camp every single time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are trying to shift our entire paradigm of aging. These aren't temporary fixes or 30-day challenges. They're sustainable lifestyle investments.
And you have to celebrate the small wins.
Celebrating the small wins is what keeps you going. Progress isn't always bigger biceps in the mirror. Progress is carrying the shopping bags pain-free.
Right.
Progress is walking up the steep hill in your neighborhood without losing your breath. Progress is experiencing a deeper, more restorative night of sleep. Every glass of water you drink, every flight of stairs you choose over the elevator, and every single good night's sleep is an investment in your future freedom.
It's basically compounding interest for your physical body. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've just explored. Think of your muscle mass, not just as physical tissue covering your bones. Think of it as your body's ultimate metabolic currency and your personal independence account.
I love that.
Every single day, through how you move, how you nourish yourself, and how you rest, you are either making tiny deposits into that account or taking tiny withdrawals out of it. How wealthy do you want to be in 20 years?
The choices you make today absolutely dictate the physical freedom you will have tomorrow.
So take a single step today. Make one tiny deposit. Maybe it's just carrying the groceries from the car a little more mindfully, engaging that core like a true farmer's carry, or maybe it's just pausing right now wherever you are and taking 5 deep breaths to lower that cortisol and let the construction crew do their job. Don't wait for the tire to go completely flat. Patch the slow leak today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.